Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy.
Breeze hits it in the air to center. We will see you tomorrow night.
This is the Viva Alberto's podcast on SB Nation. Welcome into another episode of the Viva Alberto's podcast. Tonight we are doing our reader mailbag, and with us tonight are writers Adam Akbani and Gabe Simons. I am your host, Jake Wood. Fellas, how we doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty decent. I'm moving into a new place here, so just getting everything unpacked. So my room's kind of like full with boxes, and I just got my bed done. So that process is going pretty smoothly.
New spaces equal new adventures.
I'm doing great. I was in the pool all day, so I had a good day.
Well, la-di-da for Gabe. Gabe had a great day too. I sat in my room and played video games like a man-child that I am whenever I'm not working, but it was nice. It was a nice, relaxing weekend. This was my wife and I's anniversary weekend, so we just kind of we went out to Chick-fil-A, and then we went and did some like pottery painting and just kind of chilled and relaxed this weekend. So it was a great time. The Cardinals are good? ? They currently sit at 26-21. They are 2 games behind the Chicago Cubs. They have a plus 38 run differential, and their expected win-loss is 27-20. Boys, I got a legitimate question for you. Are the Cardinals good? And I asked that question because everything that I read off, everything underlying suggests that this is real. What they're doing is sustainable. What do you guys make of what the Cardinals are doing? And Gabe, I'll throw it to you first.
I think there's no question they have played like a good team to date. You look at any stat, it supports that. They're going to get really tested in the next 20 days or so. I know they're playing the Tigers, the Diamondbacks, the Dodgers are in those 20-game span. So we'll really find out in the next month, I think, how good they really are, because not that they've had, an easy schedule, but they got a little bit more tested this past week. But yeah, I'm interested to see how they play in the next month, and we will be better informed of what to do at the trading deadline. But I'm kind of bought in, I'll be honest.
Yeah, me too. This is a team that is very much pleasantly surprised, not just myself, but I think all of us. I think if we thought at the quarter point-ish way of the season that the team would be 5 games over 500 and backing it up with the hefty run differential that they have right now, I think it's like 8th in baseball, the run differential. So they're outscoring their teams or limiting runs. In general, I think we would all be shocked to see where they're at right now. I'm very happy right now, cautiously optimistic just because of what Gabe has mentioned. They're going to get tested over the next 30 days or so with these very good opponents. You got the Dodgers coming in to face the Cardinals. You said the Diamondbacks, the Tigers. The Tigers are the best team in baseball right now. So we'll see what happens there. I'm hoping they don't face Scuball. I mean, they might, but
They do.
They will.
Yeah.
Ah, crap. Okay. Well, hopefully it goes well. So I mean, we're looking at this lineup. I mean, this is a team that has a lot of really good hitters right now, and even got there are, I think right now 5 guys above league average in terms of WRC plus, and a couple other guys who are hovering around league average. It's a team that could probably use another bat in the lineup somewhere. It's not a super pertinent issue right now. I think the rotation has exceeded expectations considering where we were at the beginning of the year. I remember reading Jason's tweet, Jason Hill, good old friend of ours from a while back, saying that, they haven't spent any money in the rotation. We can't expect them to actually pitch well. And it's actually been the opposite. We've had a very pleasant surprise with Matthew Liberatore. Eric Fetty has turned it around. Miles Michaelis has been a lot better than we thought he was going to be. Sonny Gray has been a little disappointing, or maybe for some quite a bit disappointing. Palante's been okay. The bullpen is probably where they need some help. Matz has been really good. Helsley has been shaky. Maton has been outstanding. Leahy has been outstanding. But, there are a couple other pieces where they could probably add throughout the lineup. We'll see what happens at the deadline if they're still holding up at that point. But so far, so good. Just need to keep swimming.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll touch on a lot of those subjects later as we go. But for me, I find it really hard at this point to hold out any longer. And, I know a lot of Cardinals fans who listen to this probably have the same feeling as, over the last 2 seasons of what we've seen. It's been like we've enjoyed the hot stretches, but it's hard to fully buy into, what we've seen because it's been so rough since 2022, essentially. And I think at this point, the Cardinals have shown us enough to buy into what they're doing. Everything underlying, like I had read off, suggests that it's real. And they're just playing a really fun brand of baseball to watch on an every night basis. The Cardinals are good. And I think that it's going to make the next couple months very interesting because those of us who had probably preconceived that there would be some pieces moving out at the deadline may not be going anywhere because the Cardinals will be pushing for a playoff spot. And from my perspective, that's a good thing because not necessarily the punting on bringing in additional talent, but for the next regime that is coming in to take over in the Heim Bloom and the success of the new front office will be, being able to ride that high into, the next era of Cardinals baseball, I think is a positive for the franchise overall as a whole. And I think that, nobody likes to watch crappy baseball. And from the very generalistic point of view, it's like, we get to watch something exciting every night. And so I think as Cardinals fans, like that's best case scenario for us too. Like, yeah, prospects are cool, but the opportunity, like the Cardinals set expectations lower. And do any of us realistically think they're going to win the World Series? No, probably not. But, based on what we all thought at the beginning of the season to them potentially just making the playoffs. And I know that's not been the standard for Cardinals baseball for so long, but considering our expectations coming into the season, that's a pretty good, result based off of an off season where they did virtually nothing and, didn't move one direction or the other. And so I kind of posed this question to you guys real quick, and then we'll jump into all of our reader questions. But is it better to be stuck in the middle and winning, or is it better to be stuck in the middle and losing?
I prefer not to be stuck in the middle at all.
Well, for sure. But assuming that's where we are, right? Because the Cardinals are
Yeah.
perpetually stuck in the middle, right? So would you rather be stuck in the middle winning or stuck in the middle and losing? So
Probably, Gabe, that you have something, or
No, go ahead.
I would say stuck in the middle and losing. And
Interesting.
we'll work our way outwards and work our way in. So we'll peel the layers. So starting with overall, just straight up winning and losing. If your team is winning, but you have the underlying data to back it up, where you are like a Dodgers or the Braves or the Mets, or I guess Braves in previous years, where you're just killing it.
actually, the Braves are
got-
plus 11 in their run differential right now, and they're
Yeah, so like in
a
previous
game over
years for the
500.
Braves.
Like they're digging their
Yeah.
way out of that hole, like the Cardinals have had to do in the last couple seasons.
Yeah. So
but-
if you're so if you're a team like the Astros in past years, not this year, maybe, where you're getting 95 plus wins every year, and you've got the lineup that is just showing up at a day in and day out. You got the rotation, the bullpen, and you're leading the league in team WAR in each of those 3 categories. You got a good defense behind you. You're winning. It's great. Life is all fun and dandy because you're contending, and chances are you probably, hopefully got the farm system that is still recouping and feeding you positive talent into the team for future use. If you're completely terrible, like, the Astros were about 10 years ago, or some other franchises where you're just losing hundreds of games or 100 games every year or 90 plus games, but you're building something special with the farm system, that's okay as well. Right. So, it's we and I've mentioned this before, where it's like, you've got Sam Hinkie of the Philadelphia 76ers, who was hated because he was building a process for the team, and that ended up bearing some fruit. They were bad for years, but they made the playoffs and were making it somewhat deep into the playoffs. And obviously, it just didn't happen to work out. Basketball is different than baseball, but the base idea is still the same. If you are tearing that team down to a gut and you're with a purpose, with an intentional purpose, it's better to have purpose than no purpose at all. And that's what you get with the two binaries when you're winning or tanking. When you're in the middle, you really don't know what you're doing. So if the Cardinals are kind of stuck in the middle but winning, and they get to, and we talked about this before, and they get to 85 games, that might be enough to trickle into a wild card spot. But how, the playoffs are also a crapshoot, but how confident do you feel that your team is going to be successful as an 85 win team with a, moderately okay rotation? It's a lot of extra headache. Whereas if you were just straight up, okay, we're sure we have the talent. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Or we have nothing at all, but we have a plan and process. I like having that. I think it's better to have that peace of mind one way or another than to have that cloud of uncertainty if you were kind of lingering in the middle, despite what that record may show. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Gabe, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I think it depends on the roster you have. I think because the Cardinals have such a young position player group, absolutely, I would rather be winning in the middle because there's years of control in the future. So it's not like there's certain rosters where if you're middling, there's no like future with that particular.
Yeah.
And I would absolutely want to be losing with that group. But if there's a roster that is young and has, they're under team control for multiple years after this year. If you're winning, usually that means they're doing well, which means you can probably expect it to sustain for more than that year a little bit. So it would be dependent on the roster for my answer. But with the Cardinals position where they are, I would rather be winning. And selfishly as a fan, I enjoy watching the Cardinals win, and I would jump at the chance for playoff games personally, no matter how low the odds are, just because I'm a little bit starved for a playoff game after missing a couple of years.
I think I'm right there along with you. Exactly. That's kind of my sentiment and how I feel is like they're young, they're going to grow together. And, the idea that it's just fun to watch winning baseball, I think is kind of just where as simplistic as it is. And Adam, I totally understand the point that you're making. And I agree with your side too. But I think for me, just as a fan consuming the game, I think that it's more fun to watch a team that may be somewhat stuck in the middle, but is winning, because winning is always more fun than losing. Nobody likes to lose. Duh. So
yeah. We're real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I think, you guys make a very good point. And it very could well be possible the Cardinals have already hit that inflection point in their rock bottom, right? Where that rock bottom was a couple of years ago. I think a similar team with that example that you guys just gave, where like they're on the way up, but they just happen to be in the middle this season, are the 2016 Astros, where obviously they had the first overall pick or a top 5 pick for years before that, but then they actually turned the corner and they won 84 games in 2016, the year before they won it all. That could very well be where the Cardinals are at. And if that's a point I forgot to mention, if they're on the ascension and it just happens to be they're in the middle part of that ascension in the rebuild process, that's totally fine, because you have to be somewhere and have to set some sort of benchmark on the way up.
I feel like the way that they've kind of structured it, they kind of skated around like the full, if you think about a traditional model of like tear down, rebuild, and then build back up to contender, they kind of skipped around the full tear down aspect. And now they like Band-Aid over it last year. And now this year it's like, here's the group of youth that's going to, lead the next charge without having to wait 3-4 years for, the first wave of that crop of young talent that they, brought in. And, I feel like they accelerated that process. So very interesting to see how it sustains over the next couple of seasons, if this truly is kind of who they are. Let's jump into the questions from our readers. This first question comes to us from Nate DeGraff. He asks a really interesting question. The Pirates are absolutely terrible, and that's obvious. Based on them being 15-32 this year with a -62 run differential. They're not good. Derek Shelton, their former manager, fired this week Also, Bud Black fired this week, and today Brandon Hyde was fired, and all three of those guys lost their jobs because either ownership or front office personnel are too incompetent to give them the proper pieces to compete, and they were scapegoated, and that's my honest opinion about that. And but back to Nate's original question, not going off on that tangent. He has an interesting question. When Skeens is asleep and dreaming, which team do you think he dreams of being traded to? Probably a good chance that he won't ever win anything with the Pirates based on the way that Bob Nutting controls and runs the team. So I'll throw it over to you, Adam. I think you were excited to answer this question. So where does Skeens dream of going, of being traded to whenever he's asleep?
I have absolutely no idea. I think he dreams of dollar bills. I think most free agents do that, or young guys. So if it's in Pittsburgh where they're willing to pay him, which if I'm Paul Skeens, I don't take an offer. I don't listen to offers unless they're above potentially $200 million, or I wait a couple of years until we're in arbitration, and then we can start thinking about potentially a bigger deal if he's performing as well as he has been. This is a guy who throws 100 miles an hour as a starter, with electric secondaries, and he's still 22 years old. So I think it's still very early to think about what team he could be wanting to go to. I mean, you're going to have your usual suspects with the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets will be in play, I'm assuming. You could have the Giants in there. If I had to guess, he could be going to one of those. I mean, like I said, it's almost not worth having this conversation because we really don't know when. It's more of a, for fun, and I like entertaining the question in that regard. I know he's a California native, so I think it would not, he would love to maybe come to California. The Dodgers, like I said, there might be, like, if I had to guess, it'll probably be one of those teams, but any team willing to open up the wallet for him, he's going to go there. If some team offers him in 5 years, $400 million because he'll be 28 years old, and it'll be, inflation will take effect over the next 5 years. And he could very well, if there's going to be anyone who signs a new record deal for pitchers, and if he's still performing the way that he is, it'll be him. So, we'll see what happens with Paul Skeens. The fastball velocity still needs to be there because the shape, as he gets older, it may not have the same effect, because it doesn't get the same kind of break that you would want, but he just throws 100 miles an hour. So it doesn't matter, at least right now, but the secondaries are so good that it may not matter at all, pending free agency. So I know we kind of went a little bit side tangent on the question, but, to answer, I think he dreams of dollar bills. Whichever team is willing to open up the book for him, he will sign there.
So I did a little research, bare minimum, but I did a little research. He grew up an Angels fan. So that's the easy answer, is he probably dreams that he's on the Angels, even though they're bad right now. He's probably thinking maybe in 5 years they won't be bad. Maybe he dreams of being on the Cardinals because he's tired of losing to them, but that's wishful thinking for sure. Yeah, my answer is the Angels just because he grew up an Angels fan, and I think that, I mean, he's like 5 years removed from the Angels. That's not that much. And maybe once you are on a professional team, you start thinking differently. Obviously, he'll go where the money is, but sometimes the Angels have the money, so he might still go to the Angels. Yeah, that's all I can answer with, though. I think he wanted us to answer Cardinals. I don't think it's really.
I don't know that he'll be a Cardinal. I don't think that the Cardinals have the money, would offer the money that it would take. You said the Angels because he grew up an Angels fan. Adam said the Dodgers because frequently the money, where the money's going to be the best is going to be the Dodgers, and being a Cali kid, I would think that the Dodgers would outbid the Angels in that. So the Dodgers would probably be my number one there, but a fun number two, he pitched at LSU, and his girlfriend Livy Dunn is from Louisiana. What's the closest baseball team to LSU or Louisiana?
I'm gonna guess
Probably
the
Houston.
Cardinals.
The Houston Astros would be my fun little side guess, just because of those ties, and then also Houston is a big booming economy down there, and like they're a growing space, and or a growing market, I should say, and so like the Astros would have good money to offer to Paul Skeens, and I think that there would be some comfort to being close to familiar areas down there that would be interesting to him. And as another fun aside, where did Garrett Cole get traded to whenever he was about to become a free agent? They sent him to the Astros, and so there's a historical precedent there for elite top of the market right-handed pitchers who were drafted by the Pirates only by happenstance because they were just so god awful.
I don't think they'll pay him the money though.
I know they have a limit on years that they'd be willing to.
They let Cole go. They traded Tucker. I don't think they're going to pay the big bucks for Paul Skeens, but they might trade for him, like you said.
That's why I said the question is trade, not sign. So I think that could be
right. You're right. I didn't think about that.
Our next question is, the 2025 MLB draft is fast approaching. This question comes to us from Memphis Mike. Shout out Memphis Mike. Always throws good questions our way. Will the Cardinals select a left-handed pitcher with their number 5 pick? I'm assuming he is trying to nod our direction towards left-handed pitcher out of Florida State, Jamie Arnold, who Kareem is high on, who I know Adam is high on, who I am high on, of course, just because of the nature of his, not just his delivery, but his specs, his shape, everything about what he does is very interesting, very exciting. What are your guys' thoughts on where the Cardinals are? I guess I should ask Adam what his thoughts are, because Gabe, I know we all pretty well know your stance is just best player available, unless you have a player in mind specifically that you're kind of intrigued by. I'll give you the floor first, Gabe.
Oh, no, I don't have a player I'm intrigued by. I guess my answer to this would be no, just based off odds, because there's a lot of other positions and handedness that they might draft. And I think he's the only left-handed pitcher they might draft at number 5, right? So I don't know.
Recent mock from, I think, Baseball, I could be getting this wrong, I think it was Baseball America, had Cade Anderson at number 5 for the Cardinals, which would be,
mention Cade Anderson as well.
Which I would be less than excited about, to be honest with you. But he's a very Cardinals-y pick, prototypical left-hander, 4-pitch mix, pitchability kind of pitcher. He's had a good season for LSU. What's that?
The way you're describing him does not sound like a number 5 pick.
He's not somebody I would pick at 5. I don't think that he would have quite the upside of what you're looking for at number 5. I mean, he's very Cardinals-y. He's pitchability, 4-pitch mix, control and command. Nothing overwhelming or wowing, but like would be a solid mid-rotation starter. And I think maybe that's why Baseball America might have comped or mocked him there, because that's kind of been the Cardinals' nature to go to those kinds of guys. So I would hope the Cardinals would deviate from their historic prototype or model and go more towards a prototypical top of the draft type arm. But
I don't think it's very fair to call Cade Anderson a pitchability for. I mean, he throws 4 pitches, but the guy is striking out 39% of batters right now, and I think he's 5th in all of Division I in strikeout percentage. So I mean, yeah, I would need to look into his data, but if I had to guess, he's probably got a pretty decent fastball, with a pretty flat approach angle, and he's got some pretty good secondaries to go along with it. Or if it doesn't have the greatest approach angle, maybe it's got a pretty decent break, in relative to reduced vertical break relative to his arm slot. So we'll see. I can definitely look into Cade Anderson now that I'm got this figured out here with my movement. I can probably try to do some more research in general. But I think I wouldn't be upset if they took Cade Anderson. Liam Doyle is also a really nice name that we see that probably wouldn't even be available at 5, who could go earlier. And I'm also kind of more with Gabe, where it's you just take best player available. This is a team where, they still have lots of holes in their farm system. You don't have to address any single one. Just pick the best guy and let it fall through. If it happens to be a pitcher and he happens to be left-handed, go ahead. But I wouldn't pigeonhole it so much to the fact where you feel like you are strong arming yourself into taking a left-handed pitcher because that is the mold the team has been taking. It could very well happen like that. I wouldn't be shocked. But, you know, I don't want to just restrict ourselves into thinking about left-handed pitchers. And look, there's a lot of really nice names on this list. You've got a guy like Wahia Aloy, you've got Avi Arquette, very good middle infield bats who can slide in anywhere, in the defensive spectrum. If shortstop is being spearheaded by Mason Wynn for the next 10 years, hopefully. There's plenty of spaces these guys could fit into. There's a lot of nice arms, obviously, with Jamie Arnold. There's Seth Hernandez, both of whom I think will be gone by the time you get to 5. But we'll see what happens. I'm just like what Gabe said. Take the best talent available, the guy who you think has the best combination of current available talent and what you think he could be down the road, which if that happens to be a college bat or a college arm, sure. But if it's a prep arm or prep bat, don't hold yourself short based on who these guys could potentially be.
Yeah, obviously the question or the answer always remains the same. You take best player available, but there is some question at the top of this draft about the blue chip talents, and if a blue chip talent isn't available to you, there is always the possibility that you could go for a piece that's a little under slot. And use that on a guy who might slide later in the draft. So that's always there's always different ways to approach it for sure. I know that Kareem is very intrigued by the young man Eli Willits, shortstop out of Oklahoma. There are names that get frequently mentioned like Ava Arquette or Jace Laviolette, who are the top couple of college bats. And then my personal favorite, I'm not going to try and, stomp around and get too excited about him, but I really, really like Kyson Witherspoon out of Oklahoma, 6'2" right-hander, good pitchability, big stuff, shut out Vanderbilt, at the end of April. So, is doing it at the highest level, doing it against the top talent in college. Very exciting to see. And he's starting to creep his way up boards. And I think that he's somebody that the Cardinals could probably sign slightly under slot at 5 and still get a guy who profiles as a potential top of the rotation arm. So that's kind of where I would look. And I know that some would prefer position prospects over pitchers, but as we've seen this year with the amount of injuries that the Cardinals have incurred from the minor league starter position, it's going to be best case scenario for you to continue to try to throw numbers at that and make guys earn their way up the way that, you traditionally have, rather than just relying on their question marks around like Tink Hence and what he's going to be eventually. He can't stay healthy. He hasn't pitched, over 100. He's never, pitched above 100 innings in a season. I don't remember what it was, like 76 at the most for any one individual season, but especially as a starter, never eclipsed 100 in a season. So it's kind of hard to see him as a starter long term. With Quinn Matthews, man, he's only been out for a month and I've already forgotten his name. Quinn Matthews, shoulder issue. That's obviously always of concern. Never know what eventually is going to wind up with that. Haven't really heard anything about him since he was initially put on the injured list. TK Roby has the long list of injuries to his name potentially. Never know what that's going to wind up being, though he's had a really good season. So, you knock on wood there and hope that continues on. Who's the other name? Cooper Jerpy just went down with Tommy John. That's, pretty standard procedure, but you never know with that type of delivery, how it's going to respond to react post surgery. And then Simmer Bursa just went down on the IL for the full season as well. So kind of hard to fully rely on that. Not missing out that amount of time of development, when and how he'll be ready. So I think that continuing to address the pitching is going to be the smartest way to go. And if I had to guess, I would say that Jamie Arnold would be a good pick. So like the one other interesting thing I'll say about the draft coming up is when I listen to like draft episode podcasts just around baseball, if you were hoping for a name like Ethan Holiday, not likely, because what these draft people do is they kind of ask the teams that are in the 2, 3, 5, 7, 9 like range, and don't necessarily ask them who they're taking, but they'll ask them a different question. They'll ask them, who do you think won't be at that pick? And pretty consistently, commonly across the board, a lot of them say Ethan Holiday will not be available to them whenever they pick, or that they don't anticipate him. And so there's a good chance that Ethan Holiday is trending towards that 1-1 spot, but nothing is for sure at this point still. But as far as that question goes, that's a whole lot of information about something that could be completely changed by next week. So there you go. Useless information Sunday for you, or Monday, I guess, as you'll be listening to this. Our next question comes to us from Chaser728. Let's say we are leading the division at the deadline, and at the same time it has become clear that Nolan Gorman is not the third baseman of our future. What should the Cardinals do with Nolan Arenado at that point? I will open.
Well, they're in first place, theoretically, and the deadline. I mean, I think the answer, if Arenado's playing well, you keep him at third, and if he's struggling, then, I don't know, maybe you leave him there because he's still probably really good defensively and will shadow whatever crappy offensive output he's putting out with elite defense. I think at that point, I mean, I guess I don't really understand the question, because if the Cardinals are theoretically in first place at the deadline, you're going chips in, and I would be willing to bet that Arenado is part of that win now plan, because even if he's a league average hitter, he's probably the best defensive third baseman in baseball, not named Matt Chapman or maybe Manny Machado at this point, but he's probably more still, even if he's a league average hitter or slightly below like he's doing right now, he's more of the part of the solution rather than he is not the solution. So I think Arenado is going to be there no matter what.
I think what he was trying to ask was like, if the Cardinals continue to be in contention based off of like the offseason, do they continue to look at trying to move Arenado, or do they keep him? And I think that's kind of I'm fully with you, Adam. It doesn't make any sense to trade him if they're winning. Like, that's just point blank period. You don't trade him if you're winning.
Also, I got to add that, like, Arenado has to agree to a trade. If we're winning, does he leave?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he wants to leave if the Cardinals are winning. I'm going to be honest.
I'm fully agree.
He didn't even want to leave when they were playing bad. I mean, I guess he did.
He thought we were having like a retool year, and he was like, he didn't want to go to the Astros, which looks like a good decision right now. I'll give him props on that one, although the Astros have built their way back. But yeah, I think just this is not necessarily something where they have much of a choice. Is he saying like, would they bench Arenado? Like, because I don't think
so. I think his question centers around would they like.
Oh wait, hold on. The question said Gorman isn't the answer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you just keep Arenado.
Yeah. Did you mean to say Gorman or Arenado?
He added both. The question was,
yeah,
let's say we are leading the division at the deadline, and at the same time, it has become clear that Nolan Gorman is not the third baseman of our future. What should the Cardinals do with Nolan Arenado at that point?
Oh, okay. So I think with the phrasing of that, it's indicating that if Gorman look like the third baseman of the future, that we would trade him. I don't necessarily accept that premise because I'm not sure. Like I said, Arenado has to agree to a trade, and it's a lot of work to get a trade made in the first place, especially with some complicated contract details. And I just think, like, if they're winning, I feel like the Cardinals would just be like, he's not going to leave. Why would we even bother trying to work out a trade? That's just where I'm at, though.
Yeah. I think that's also true, but I think it's as simple as saying if the Cardinals are contending and they're in first place, they're pushing their chips in, and Arenado's part of that solution. If they were losing, then, and if you were willing to accept a trade, just like how Gabe said, then yeah, you move him. But right now, and then if they're still holding pat, you make a playoff push and you don't trade him. The same vein, hopefully you don't trade any of your other top prospect for other pieces to fit in your lineup. I guess it would, if you want other solutions, you probably have to, but I just don't see Arenado not being part of a win now plan in 2025
Yeah.
if they're there in a couple of months. I just think he's part of that. He's part of that plan.
Yeah, fully agree with you guys. And I think at this point, I think Nolan Gorman is more like, I know his value is depreciated significantly, but I think he's more trade chip a la like change of scenery type player than he is current future third baseman for the team. You guys are welcome to push back on that, but that's just kind of where it seems to be at this point for him. Now, there is obvious questions around like the amount of runway he's gotten so far this season, which is a fair question, but this is also a situation of the Cardinals' own doing. Like, they did not necessarily clear the way for Gorman to get the bats to see what he is. So, and then on top of that, you add in that they're surprisingly contending again. So, you're more focused. I would say you're equally as focused on developing the young players at the major league level as you are trying to win ball games now. And so without it being just full development at the major league level, that's going to squeeze some guys out of some roles and opportunities in the name of winning. And like, overall, from the overall perspective, that's not a bad thing. But from like in a vacuum for Nolan Gorman, it's just kind of a no-win situation for him. He has to take better advantage of the limited opportunities he has, and so far he hasn't done that. And so, when talking about runway and like developing the next core team of the future, I go back to, I recognize that his value is probably low, but is he a piece that you might look to deal somewhere else to maybe a team who is maybe looking more towards the future, but has an interest, like you mentioned earlier, Adam, an interesting bullpen piece that may have a year or two of control on him, that can immediately step into the bullpen now and for the next year or two, and kind of be a part of that growth going forward. And like, it'd be unfortunate that, knowing what Nolan Gorman could have been, to be traded for just a bullpen piece, kind of like not necessarily what Dylan Carlson was, because that was a little bit different, but kind of in that same vein. I would hope for a little bit better. Like, Sean Armstrong wasn't bad. He was just kind of mediocre, middling, in my opinion. And so, but that's kind of what I mean, is like a piece like that to kind of help stabilize the middle relief, to kind of help continue to give Ollie more options to help bridge towards a Helsley.
Yeah, and I'll even take it a step further, and I'll be like,
by the way.
So what was that?
Colby Rasmus, he was traded for a reliever and had promise at first, and then he had some off-field stuff with his dad though. But never mind, that's just furthering the comparison.
Yeah, I'll even take it a step further, because like, if Jordan Walker, and like, everyone's gonna go, like, oh my gosh, a year and a half, 2 years removed from being a top prospect in the Cardinals organization, he's been really bad, guys. I mean, obviously he homered last night, and that's great for him, but he just hasn't taken the step forward, and he's regressed, if anything. I didn't think it could get much worse. He's been better defensively, but that's about it. As a hitter, he just hasn't gotten the hang of things. He's been by far the worst player in the Cardinals lineup, playing every single day. It's almost getting to a point where you bench him. And like, I think you also give him maybe a change of scenery type scenario too, like you mentioned, Jake, where, a guy like Nolan Gorman, if you can use him or maybe Jordan in a trade to acquire a win now piece, because Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman isn't playing every day. Jordan Walker is almost playing like almost every single day. He's a qualified player. I don't think Gorman is. And he's been a complete just buoy, like a complete anchor. And like, and I don't mean like he's been like anchoring the lineup. He's been an anchor from preventing the team from playing a lot better than they could be. He's like what, like a negative 0.7, 0.6 WAR player this far in the season. I think you try to capitalize on the fact that he's got astronomical bat speed and try to sell that to a team and try to get yourself a piece or two that can help you win this season if all is going well come July 30th. Same thing with Nolan Gorman. I mean, Nolan Gorman has been better defensively. The questions about his play discipline and contact, I was thinking about that too. And then Jake, you mentioned that you tweeted about it. And those are all great improvements, but the bat speed is just disappeared for Nolan Gorman. I just don't know what happened there. And if he had a shred of bat speed of what he had before, he'd probably be an everyday player and would actually be one of the better hitters on the team. It's just not coming together for these two guys. I think you try to cut bait, and like with Walker, like all ordinarily might be a little early, but I think you try to capitalize on the fact that a team might still have hope and try to use that to your advantage to try to get some value in terms of who you can get back, who can help you win now.
Yeah, I think I would be a little more patient with Walker than I would be with Nolan Gorman for a couple different reasons. For one, Jordan Walker's still only 22. He's only 4 months older than JJ Weatherholt is right now. And I get that, like, he's been a part of affiliated baseball longer than JJ Weatherholt has. It's a fair point. But at the same time, we have seen positive steps forward in his profile. We see him now as at least a league average or better defender in the outfield. I mean, hell, he was used as a defensive replacement, Jordan Walker was, in Philadelphia. And so he's making strides in his overall profile, even if the hitting side hasn't fully come together yet. I still think that patience is the best case scenario for him right now. You look at Jackson Churio and what he was able to work his way through last season in the first half of the season, and now he's, this incredibly awesome offensive piece for the Milwaukee Brewers. I say for now I'm just letting Walker continue to struggle and get through it, because I believe in his eventual ability to make adjustments and improve, because we're seeing that he, when had the proper instruction in the outfield, made the adjustments and improved. I'm betting that he does the same thing with Brant Brown, but it's just taking a little bit longer for it to all click in. For Nolan Gorman, he's 25 years old, I believe. And so like you're getting kind of to the end of that runway where he's no longer really young in the sport anymore. And it's kind of like time to put up or shut up. And he's not really making enough impactful, necessary adjustments in his profile that you're comfortable continuing to let that ride out on a team that's trying to contend. Now, if he goes to a team like the White Sox or the Marlins or the Rockies or, X, Y, or Z, a team that's really not that great, and they would benefit from taking a flyer on a guy like Nolan Gorman, and then they also have an interesting piece in the bullpen that they would be willing to send your way that would help you now. I think that makes a lot more sense, but for me, Adam, you're absolutely welcome to feel differently about it. I think I'm giving Jordan Walker a little bit more patience and time. But, Ollie also went on KMOX, as he does every Tuesday on the Gas House Gang, and Mo has reiterated this too, is like the runway isn't infinite for these guys, right? So like eventually it will run out if they don't take advantage of the opportunities that they're given. But to that same effect, they are giving at least Walker the opportunity to continue to work through it and fix it at the major league level with the major league coaching staff, with, the guys that they trust most to make those adjustments with him. And, if this season was truly about giving them the opportunity to do that, then, at least they're sticking to their commitment to doing that and trying to walk that line of trying to contend at the same time. If they're able to walk and chew bubblegum at the same time and do both, and they come out on the better end and Jordan Walker becomes at least 80% of what we thought he could be, that's a really good scenario, like, of a successful season in my eyes for the Cardinals.
Nolan Gorman for Sandy Alcantara, anyone?
Before,
Doesn't he have like an 8.5 ERA right now?
It's 8. I mean, so Sandy's not right. Something's up with him.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's something that, this isn't him, but it's almost like I hear what you're saying, Jake. It's just like with Walker, it's just like I said, the defense has been better, but that's really it. It's hard for me to see the offense being any better, especially when he's got, like, you can't really see anything under the hood from a swing metric standpoint that there's any change. The contact rate's still hovering in the mid to low 80s. He's still very aggressive and chasing. He's not swinging in the zone compared to how much he is chasing. And like like I said, the swing decisions just aren't there. The power we know is there with Jordan. He's not hitting the ball in the air like we thought he was, like we wanted him to. The production went down from a 72 WRC plus last year, which was already awful, to even worse. I wouldn't be surprised if he's been the worst qualified hitter in baseball this year. He may not be, but he's got to be in like in the bottom five or
I
something.
believe he was like bottom five. So I think it was
Yeah.
Katie Wu who had some numbers on one of their most recent Foul Territory episodes. But, you know, Ollie's also been talking about, and I know everyone, like fans, I get it. You take it with a grain of salt. Ollie's been talking about the work that he's been putting in the cage. Like they're really excited and encouraged by what they're seeing and the changes. They just haven't, you know, translated to the field yet. And I get that this makes me sound more like fanish and homerish and stuff like that. I get it. But that I at least take that home run he had last night as a positive step in the right direction. And then a couple days ago, he had that clutch RBI single late in the game, even though the Cardinals lost. You know, he's starting to produce a little bit. We've seen over this last little stretch. So like hoping he can build on that and kind of get himself right and get himself out of it. So that's kind of where I'm like, I'm giving it more time. I understand what you're saying, Adam, of like the overall profile and what the metrics are showing. And that shows a longer stretch of time this season where he has not been good and he has not shown a mechanical adjustment to his swing and his overall approach that is expected of him. I'm giving all of those points to you. That's absolutely correct. I still think that there is enough time for him to build on the couple good things that he has done recently, and it will lead to a meaningful step forward offensively. Even if it's not, you know, league average or better, if he's 85, even 90 WRC plus by the end of the season, you know, that is a positive step forward.
Oh, yeah. If he gets to 90 and he's at 50 right now, that means he's probably doing like 120, 130, and that'll be a huge difference. And I would completely shut up at that point. But, you know,
got to show me first. I get it. Yeah.
I really wish that Gorman and Walker were in opposite positions because Gorman is, like you said, 25, and he's got JC knocking on the door and soon Weatherholt, and clock is ticking. He also has two options. So that would be convenient if we could send him down. Whereas Walker has one option. There's really nobody knocking on his door anytime soon. I mean, I know maybe Chase Davis takes the lead forward, but he's only hit 3 home runs in Double A. He's only hit 3 home runs in Double A, and they were all off the same dude, which doesn't leave me with a lot of confidence that he's like close.
That's a weird anomaly.
They were off the same pitcher?
Yeah, all of his homers are against the same guy. It's really weird. So I made that point in a comment, and I really wish they were like where Gorman had like nobody behind him and unlimited time to play, and Walker could be sent down for another year and have him work. Anyway, I think it's way too early to give up on Walker. I would definitely not trade him because he's 23 and
he's 22.
Well, he's going to be 23 in like 5 days.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like the fact that it's crazy to me. Sorry to cut you off, but I looked it up a couple days ago, and I was like, man, he's only 4 months older than JJ Weatherholt is. Like to me, that's an obvious sign where I'm like, we need to relax on this, like expecting, you know, put up or shut up time for him. Like he should have more time than I think some of us are giving him. And I get that, like for Adam specifically, I don't know if it's just like you're fatigued with this and it's like, how many more chances does a guy need? But it's also like, listen, he's 22. He's nowhere near his physical maturity, like prime. Like he's still, if we're willing to also, you know, give grace or credence to the fact that they rushed him to the major leagues, that he was not a fully developed product getting to the major leagues, and that stunted his development, then they're trying to make up for lost time. And I think that we should give that more patience. Like that's kind of where I'm at with it.
And my main thing with Walker is just that there's nobody behind him.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to see Ryan Velotti start games instead of him. I don't want to see Brian Torres start games, Mike Andico. Like I know you could put Nootbaar and then Donovan in the outfield and Gorman. If Gorman was playing better, maybe, but like it's just the reason why you play him is just that he's kind of like the last line of defense in the outfield a little bit, and because his defense is giving you a better floor to work with than what we previously thought. I'm giving him at least another month personally, and we'll see beyond that, but. I'm very encouraged by the homer, and yeah, he's just so young. I give him the entire year. I may have to resort to like him being like a true bench player at some point, but I don't want to burn that last option this year in case we want to send him down next year because you don't want to be in the position where you're DFAing a 24-year-old uh, former top 100 prospect who is run out of options. I mean, I cannot stress enough how dumb it was that he made the opening day roster 2 years ago, and I said that at the time.
I did too.
I it's so frustrating when like that decision has been as bad as possible, has worked out as poorly as possible, but it was a poor decision. Like this outcome wasn't like completely unreasonable outcome. And the Cardinals put themselves in this position. He should be able to be improving in AAA right now. And he's got to be in the majors all year, I think.
Well, so it's not like he wasn't like, yes, he was somewhat rushed to the big leagues, but remember, this is a guy who actually had some success at Double A the year before, and it's not uncommon for guys with his
He wasn't that
caliber.
great in Double A though. He had a 124 weighted runs
Well,
created.
the idea is that with guys like so like Jackson Churio was rushed. So the idea is that if you got guys with projectable power, like those two do, obviously Jordan Walker is an 80 power raw. Churio is probably like a 70, but there's other things to his profile that make him fantastic. With those kinds of guys, you can, I mean, 124 WRC plus is pretty good, right? He hit 19 home runs, and the idea is that, you try to figure out whether he can hit in the air or not. And he
In the
played
big
all season last year sorry, in 2022, he played the whole season at Double A. He was good there. He had a good spring. It's not out of the ordinary for 2023 for him to make the big leagues. And he was good. I mean, for 117 games he played, he was a one more player. He had 16 bombs, 116 WRC plus player, and he really turned it on towards the end of the season, I remember. So we going into 2024, I mean, like it was a huge step from 2022 to 2023, but then the 2020, like, but he made that jump. He stabilized and he was good. So from there, you kind of expect him to just continue building. And for a guy, yes, I know he's 22 years old and will be 23, but you're hoping he continues to improve and build on what he's done in the past, and it's gotten a lot worse. I almost hesitate to really, I question the validity and the importance of his defense improving when his offense and his claim to fame has just been awful because he's not really giving the Cardinals value out there when his team has been just when he's just been so much worse from a hitting perspective and is tanking the lineup. You know, you're talking about and like, there's another I would, you said you hate to pull the plug on a 20 eventual 24-year-old who who was a former top 100 prospect, but I invite you to consider that there's another former top 100 prospect on the Cardinals team right now who their previous team pulled plug on them pretty quickly because they were so bad. And that guy is Mr. Jose Barrero.
They didn't
So,
give up on him that quickly though.
huh?
They didn't give up. He was past the age 24 on the Reds.
Right. But my point is he was still performing very poorly, and he actually had less playing time and run than Jordan Walker did. So like Jose Barrero never got more than doesn't have more than 464 plate appearances. And Jordan Walker has had more at this point and just has been awful. I know that he's younger and both guys were really bad, but it's not uncommon. I think the fact that he's a former top 100 prospect shouldn't waver you from trying to cut bait on him. The success rate on prospects in general from reaching their future value is like 1 in 3. So if a guy like Jordan Walker busts, there's obviously varying levels of degrees to where they could reach, but the fact that he could bust was always there because it's there for any prospect.
Just to put it a little bit in perspective, though, Jose Barrero was actually quite a bit worse than Jordan Walker offensively. He batted 152 with a 43.7% strikeout rate and 174 plate appearances at 24 years old. And the Reds did keep him through age 25. So if they send him down now, then he either has to be in the majors or they give up on him at age 24. That's 2 years earlier than the Reds got rid of Jose Barrero. So, I mean, that's my argument. And also, the reason why it was dumb to promote him to the major leagues is not because of his offense, it's because of his defense. His defense made it to where he basically had to be immediately like David Ortiz level offense in order to be a good player. And meanwhile, the outfield depth at the time was a lot stronger. And yeah, I just I don't know. I think he's just I mean, I like progress isn't linear, So
Yep.
maybe he takes a step backwards before he takes a step forward. And uh, I mean, he hit 2 balls over 108 miles an hour yesterday. Not just a homer. His hardest hit ball was a hard hit ground out that I think somebody made a nice play on. Bobby Witt probably. Um, but yeah, I can't. I'm just not on board with just either
Yeah.
getting rid
I,
of him or trading him for spare parts at age 24, because that just feels like a recipe where we're like,
I'm not necessarily saying trade him for spare parts, but if he needs to be included in part of a deal that can land you a key piece that could turn this team into a
I don't
well,
think
contender.
he has that kind of value anymore, though.
yeah, I think that's also kind of a separate conversation too. Is like what he could net you as opposed to like where he is at in his development cycle and what he could be for you. Is it so like where I think Gabe and I are kind of at. Let me say this, Adam. You know, you think about it how you will, and I don't mean to make that sound pretentious or anything. I'm just saying, like, if is it coming from a place for you where you're just kind of fatigue, like, you know, when you get like prospect fatigue or whatever, like is it just you're kind of fatigued with like this whole conversation that surrounds Jordan Walker and like he should be better and all of the intangibles and the tools and everything suggests that he should be better, but it's just not translating. Is it just like
Not at all.
okay,
It's not prospect fatigue because I mean,
well,
like
no,
if anything,
I
like
likened it to prospect fatigue. I didn't mean it
yeah,
was
no, no,
actually.
no, and that's fair. I can understand where you're coming from with that, but like it's all like when we think about we're talking about Nolan Gorman, where Nolan Gorman has made strides and improvement in his play discipline and contact ability, where you can say, okay, yeah, well, shit, pardon my French, the bat speed isn't there, but hopefully that's just a minor issue that is not working out right now, and he can get back to that at some point. If you put the vertical barrel accuracy where he's sweet spotting the ball together with the eventual power output that could come back, and you put that with the newfound plate discipline and contact ability, you've got a fantastic hitter who could potentially anchor your lineup with Nolan Gorman.
Oh.
And it's been slow, but I would say like progress with Gorman, and it's still disappointing. But at least you can look tangibly and see that there's some sort of improvement with Nolan Gorman. With Jordan Walker, you haven't seen anything, and it's been you've seen like you saw his rookie season, he was good, but his past 2 seasons, 18 months of baseball, he's done nothing to show that he has improved in any capacity offensively. Defensively, yeah, he's gotten better, which we all expected to happen. But you would think that, okay, just given his power output, like, and this is kind of going off of what, like, to kind of respond to what Gabe said about his power, about his he having a lot better production than Barrera, which is, yeah, it's true. But when you have an 80, when you have 80 power and the kind of max and exit velos that he has, you expect him to be a little bit better to some degree. Barrera can play the field and can fit in at shortstop and in center field if you need him to. Maybe not that great.
Yeah, the center field outfield defense was not that great.
Huh?
I said his center field outfield defense did not, at least in Philadelphia, did not look that great.
The point is they're trying.
Yeah, no, I understand the point. I'm just saying, like, it didn't look great.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, like, yeah. So with Jordan Walker, overall, big picture, you're not seeing any improvements offensively at all. It's like you're not seeing him hit the ball in the air. He's one of the worst hitters in terms of sweet spot percentage in all of baseball. He's not making contact at a higher rate than he used to. He's not showing any more patience than what he used to. He's still chasing, if anything, at a career high than he was before, and he's not swinging in the zone as often as he should be. He's not making any strides. And you would, if he was, you saw like a steady decline in chase percentage from 33 to 31 to like maybe mid to high 20s. And you saw the contact percentage hover in like the mid to high 80s. And you saw him, the biggest thing is hitting the ball between 8 and 32 degrees on a consistent basis. That is the biggest thing that he hasn't been able to do. And I wouldn't care where his play discipline numbers or his contact rates are if he was sweet spotting the crap out of the ball to go along with his power, because he'd be ex-wobaconning his way to success. None of that is happening. He hasn't improved on any single one thing. Like I said, I wouldn't just cut bait on him for any small piece, but if he can use him as a larger package to get something, then sure. But if that's not part of the question, I'm totally with you guys. Just let him try to figure it out. He's still 23, but I think the clock is ticking on Jordan Walker, and it obviously is ticking on Nolan Gorman as well.
I want to reframe the context here a little bit. I know obviously his rookie year is driving the majority of these numbers, but at the end of the day, his career weighted runs created plus is still 94, and he's done that in 788 plate appearances. And if his defense is what it is now, I mean that's a slightly below average player. But if you have a 94 with a 23-year-old outfielder who's just slightly below average, you're relatively optimistic about his future. Now, obviously, the trajectory of how he got to this point would make one more pessimistic than that. But I think like if you look at the overall body of work, because like he's only played in like 80 something games in the last 2 years combined, which is like 40 games less than he played in his rookie year.
This is the first season in his career where he's played in the month of May. That's just another small piece.
The sample size is just not that great still for the last 2 years. Like I feel like the plate appearance wise, like are you going to give up on a guy who and maybe give up is the wrong phrase for what you're arguing, but he's got a little over 300 plate appearances the last 2 years combined. He's 23 years old, or about to be 23 years old, sorry. He's showed massive improvements on defense, and he has a career 94 weighted runs created plus. I just don't see, like, I feel like you got to give that guy more time. That's how I would reframe that.
And that's valid, but let me invite you to consider that for a guy who was a full-time player the year before in 2023, I mean, full-time when he was there, obviously, 117 games. He played 51 games at the big league level because he was so bad that they had to demote him for him to work on his game at AAA.
Oh, I know. No, I understand that. But I'm saying that
we understand your pessimism. Like we're not sitting here saying like we don't understand.
I'm not going to try to argue that he is
he's not played up to his capabilities whatsoever. But we just feel that he should get more time because of their outliers that suggest that there is absolutely more in the package that will lead to greater success in the near future, if that makes sense.
Not that this will lead to a lot of optimism, but his ZiPS projection is at 91 too. So like, I'm not like 94 is not a crazy number to like hope for with Walker. And yeah, I just think like if you think about an above average corner outfielder who's 23, who has 94, you're like, okay, maybe he can build on that and improve. And that's not a guy you would usually give up on. Yeah. Like I said, I know I'm framing it in a completely different way than how it happened, but I mean, I feel like that's kind of how you got to look at it a little bit, because that rookie year's in there somewhere. I truly believe that. Like, I don't think that hitting ability just disappeared. So, I want to find out for sure, and not do quite the same thing with Dylan Carlson, where he got buried on the bench in favor of Jordan Walker, to bring this to a full circle.
Yeah, how fun.
The irony. Field is a death triangle out there, or
something like that. Two just quick points I want to hit on real quick before we move on. In terms in regards to Nolan Gorman, Adam, you had brought up his declining in swing speed, and Ollie talked about that whenever he was on Gas House Gang, and because I specifically made sure to ask that question and get it in the chat, so not to toot my own horn, but just be relevant. He talked about how Gorman was sacrificing some of that for better, zone plate discipline, swing decisions, things of that nature. He said he was intentionally sacrificing some of that for a better plate approach and things of that nature. And he just kind of left it at it is what it is, and that's kind of what he's been working on. I don't know, like he could be trying to put the 2 and 2 back together, but it kind of sounds like the way he's approaching it right now, and Ollie said this as much as like this is kind of more or less the direction he's going and who he is, not necessarily that he's ever going to go, you never say never, but that he's going to go back to that higher swing speed, pull happy kind of profile that he was before. And yes, he was much more productive that way, but I think the idea behind what they're trying to do is make him more consistent. And if they're robbing Peter to pay Paul at this point, essentially, but it's also kind of robbing his value too, because he's far less productive than he was before. Even if it was sporadic production, it's still production, and we're not really getting to see that at all in his limited opportunities. And then the second point I wanted to touch on was that Mo spoke to Katie Woo, I believe it was last Friday, and when talking about like runway for these guys, he made it sound like mid to late June was like the very earliest they would consider reconsidering those types of runway. So at least for the next six-ish weeks, they're going to continue on this path. And then I guess the way they're looking at it is, you know, the closer they get to mid-season and this kind of and the winning kind of sustains, then they're more open to kind of changing their philosophies on how they're going to go about the season the rest of the way. But as far as things go right now, they're kind of sticking to the plan and staying on track. So I think it's going to continue. You're going to continue to see Jordan Walker get those opportunities in the outfield. And, you know, from the optimistic point of view, that Gabe and I are kind of sharing is like, hopefully the last couple days that we've seen some good things out of him just continues to, you know, lead to more success going forward. And he is able to build on that. And then 6 weeks from now, this isn't even a conversation anymore. It's just, hey, wow, that's really cool that Jordan Walker is doing really well. And he's just a productive part of the lineup. And, you know, we don't really even talk or think about it anymore. So, that's the hope, at least. Obviously, if it doesn't turn, if it doesn't turn into that, then obviously they're considering that there will be a point in the season where they change course on that. Just tying up a couple loose ends on that conversation. This next question comes to us from THP0344. His question is, what has been the biggest surprise so far this year? And I feel like we answer this question every time, but it's still, I think there are a plethora of interesting surprises so far for this season in a positive. Let's keep this positive. Who's surprised you in a positive way? And then his little aside, obviously Gabe won't pick Scott. That article isn't aging well. For the record, THP0344, I also was in line with Gabe. We do need to give Adam his flowers on this. Adam was the one who was pushing for Victor Scott to be on the opening day roster, and it's turned out really well. So Adam, kudos to you for sticking to that. Although it has caused other players to kind of get squeezed on their playing time, but Scott's taken his opportunity and run with it, metaphorically speaking, and realistically speaking, he has run with it. But Gabe, I'll let you go ahead and respond first. Who's been the biggest surprise so far this year and in a positive way for you?
I would say, well, first off, like, I feel like I'd be more likely to pick Scott because I expected him to not do this.
Touche.
But that's not he's not my answer, unfortunately. I kind of wish it was, to just be like, stick it in his face. But I would say, well, because like if you look at Scott's offensive line, like this is like within the realm of what I would think, because his ex-WOBA is a little lower, and I don't think he's an above average hitter still. But my biggest surprise is easily Matthew Liberatore.
Yeah.
Mostly because I didn't see this coming at all. I will fully admit it. His numbers in the bullpen last year were solid. Like, they weren't the kind of numbers that made me think, oh, he should move to the rotation. That's my honest opinion. And spring training numbers were like, they were good. He had a good ERA, but he wasn't really striking people out. And his walk rate was double what it is now, or almost double, I should say. And just suddenly he's like pitching like almost an ace. I don't know how sustainable that is, but he keeps doing it. And we keep saying, I don't know how sustainable it is, but he continues to pitch very good 8 games into the season. And
it was great too.
Yeah, he had a good game today. He didn't get the win, but he had a good game. But yeah, I didn't see this coming at all. It's not that I couldn't see him being a viable starting rotation member, but I would have thought like way worse performance wise, maybe like in the 4s for FIP and ERA. And yeah, he just looks like so much better than he did when he started games last year. Like, so much better. It's insane.
Yeah, and I probably would have said Liberatore as well, and I think that's the overwhelming popular answer a lot of us would have had. I'll go, since you took him, I'll go a little bit different. I'll give you a couple of guys, and I'll touch on them
pick
quickly.
one. Pick one.
Okay.
Save one for me.
I guess I'll go Brendan Donovan, right? I mean, we thought
interesting.
Brendan Donovan, we know he was a good player. He was on the up and up throughout his, young career so far, but at the end right now, he's got to be top 5 in the top 5 for MVP voting. I mean, like for the National League, or probably, he's going to receive MVP votes. I mean, I'll check right now exactly, the leagues for National League and American League.
He had a 4-hit game
Maybe
today
not top
too.
5, but he's been freaking outstanding. He's been the best player on the team. I didn't expect, a quarter of the way through the season that Brendan Donovan would be leading your team in WAR. He's been, he's leading the league in hitting, I believe, or at least he was at one point for a large part of the season. He's spearheaded that second base. He's run with it, for which is a position that, we had a question mark for a little while. Who was going to take that and run with it? It's been Brendan Donovan. He's still having that uber utility role. So I'll go with him.
And may I add, by the way, his ex-WOBA is better than his current WOBA. So he should be doing better than he is, which is insane to think about.
Yeah, he's been fantastic.
That's scary.
Can't have enough good things to say about Brendan Donovan this year.
So my positive surprise this season, I would say, is Kyle Leahy, and not necessarily like that didn't expect him to be good, but like I saw signs of him, taking steps forward later in the season. And I was going to honestly, I know it's easy for me to say after the fact, I was honestly going to ask Ollie about this at winter warmup, about Kyle Leahy and kind of what he saw in those increasing high leverage situations. But I kind of chickened out after getting the eye roll in the first question from him. So I didn't want to ask anymore. But Kyle Leahy this season in 20 games has pitched 26 2/3 innings, 21.9 K percent to an only 7% walk percent, a 51% ground ball rate, 1.01 ERA. That will play. He does have a 3.41 FIP, so he has benefited from some really good defense behind him, but what Cardinal pitcher hasn't? And with them having, 27 outs above average and leading the entire major leagues in that, I'm not going to sit here and say that, the outlier is that Leahy's benefiting from some random luck. I think it's all of the pitching staff is benefiting from good defense behind them. So if he were on a different team, I would buy into it less, but because he's on this team, I fully buy into what he's doing right now. His expected ERA is, a couple runs better. His FIP is a couple runs better. Like all of it across the board suggests that, he's getting lucky to an extent, but he's continuing to, produce and do it at the rate that he has. So, ride that horse as long as you possibly can. To echo Mike Shannon, ride that horse as long as you can, big boy, and just do the best you can with it. And Kyle Leahy has surprised me in a way that I did not expect him to be the right-handed relief option that would step into a high leverage role late in games. I thought that would be Ryan Fernandez at the beginning of the season, and unfortunately that kind of blew up on Ryan Fernandez. Hopefully he's figuring it out and getting it back to a place where we hope it can be, and that will just add to the bullpen if he's able to do so. But so far, really, really exciting stuff from Kyle Leahy. So
I think one guy that, if we're going to stick to the bullpen, that we should also mention as an honorable mention is Steven Matz. He's reborn
for sure
as long reliever, and now is kind of starting to settle in as that maybe 7th inning man, which I would not mind seeing him in. He's been absolutely shut down this year. He had a hiccup pretty recently, I think, against the Phillies, but he's been outstanding so far this year. Don't have enough good things to say about Steven Matz.
And as far as like a hiccup goes, it was a pretty minute. It wasn't like a big blow up. It was just he kind of gave up the lead in a tight game. So
yeah, kind of dinked and dunked on that one.
Yeah,
which will happen.
Yep, it's perfectly within the range of outcomes. It's not anything to be overly concerned about going forward, but noteworthy. Mm-hmm. So this last little set here, we're gonna do some rapid fire questions. We have multiple questions from user Huey RVA, who frequents on the mailbag episodes. So try to keep your answers relatively short, gentlemen. We are already almost to an hour and 15 minutes here. So some of our listeners are probably getting a little fatigued by listening to this. So we're going to keep it light and fun just to keep the energy up towards the end here. The first one, and I will throw this at Gabe just because I was curious to hear how he would answer this. Would you trade Victor Scott for O'Neill Cruz straight up? This was a question posed by fellow writer Greg ORSDL in a thread that needs an expert answer.
Yes.
Okay.
My answer is yes. You take the guy who has done it over the guy who might do it.
Um, to
Yeah.
Adam, Herrera is the real deal at the plate. Where will the Cardinals play him next year? Catcher, DH, or outfield? Just look at him. He looks like a baseball player. He could play anywhere. I think I'm in love. Where do you think that Herrera will be playing next season? Not necessarily where do you want him to play next season. You can answer both,
Yeah.
but just kind of where do you
I'm
think it's trending?
I'm glad you added that qualifier at the end, because if I said where I want him to play, we were talking with Kareem about this, that I want him behind the plate, because even if he can't catch just yet, I mean, no one really can. I think everyone's at 0 fielding runs behind the plate. Just let your young prospect show what he can do, where he could potentially be a top 5 player in the sport. If he's not, I think it's kind of like what Nate said last week, where he could very well just slide into a first base DH spot, once Contreras, finishes out his career, that he probably could very well just stay as a DH off the field or play minimal defense at first base. It's a very real possibility that he's not the long-term answer at catcher, which is very unfortunate to say, but I think that is a very possible reality we have to face.
Sure. Gabe, will Leahy get a chance to be a starter in 2026? He has multiple pitches. He's getting MLB players out this year, but he's kind of old. Pitchers do take time to develop. Do you think that Leahy gets a chance to start in 2026?
I think I'll probably go to spring training prepping as a starter. I don't think he has a realistic chance to start. I think he's just too old to build himself up, so to speak. Because I think his innings is not at a starter's workload, and it hasn't been for a couple of years. But yeah, just based off his age, I just think you just gotta keep him in the bullpen. Really, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And then final question over to you, Adam. Do you all share the love for Barrero? His center field defense wasn't great last night. I see him being a decent bench player at best. Will he be more? Do you believe in more from Barrero, or do you think it's perfectly acceptable that he's just kind of a bench piece?
Yeah, I mean, this guy, like, I know, like, we kind of spoke. I'm gonna like not be a hypocrite about it, but I did kind of equate Jordan Walker to Barrero in terms of not giving up, that you can give up on a prospect, and it does happen. I think he's still potentially a viable bench piece. The guy has less than 500 plate appearances for his career. And like you said, oh, what about Jordan Walker? You were just saying, but this is a guy, for a guy who has a little bit more versatility on the diamond, a little bit more athleticism. They're not sticking Jordan Walker in center field despite Barrero, maybe being shaky. With a guy like Barrero, I think you could still find some value in him as a bench piece. I mean, this is a guy who still kind of can hit the ball hard at some point, is an athlete out there. Obviously the swing and miss issues are there, but I think that you could potentially have the makings of a decent backup, fourth or fifth infielder at some point. Obviously he was someone who we thought, or everyone thought, he would be a potential star or an above average everyday player when he was a Reds prospect. That didn't materialize. I still think he's a big leaguer, at least at this juncture, but he could also just fizzle out and it really wouldn't matter because they have a plethora. The Cardinals have a plethora of guys they can choose from.
For sure. Thank you, all of our readers, for all of your questions. As always, we do appreciate them, and we do enjoy doing these. Genuinely do enjoy doing these episodes and just being able to have the opportunity to kind of share our thoughts back and forth with each other. Gabe, final thoughts for the Cardinals over the next week? Anything you're interested in talking about, or just a point you didn't get to that you wanted to talk about real quick?
No, I think I'm just hoping they at least go 3-3 this upcoming week. Tomorrow is a weirdly important game with Sonny Gray versus Kiter Montero, and he's not that great. And then after that, they got the pitching advantage. So hopefully we can at least win tomorrow against the Tigers.
Adam, final thoughts for you, sir?
They might even have the advantage tomorrow. I know Sonny Gray got shellacked last time, but I'd rather take Sonny over.
Well, it is Sonny at home, so that might be a little bit different.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just, steady as she goes, boys. We got a quarter of the way through the season. So far, so good. Don't take the foot off the gas, see what happens. Hopefully things go well and they make the right decisions, post deadline or pre-deadline to put the team in a position to either succeed this season if they are winning, or in a position to be successful for 2026, 2027 if things do happen to fall apart. I just hope they push the right buttons one way or another.
For sure. For me, my final thoughts are it's fun to be cheering for a team that's winning again. And for that, to extend a little bit further beyond that, go to the games. Like, the team is winning. The team is exciting. It's entertaining. Go to the games. Go support them. Despite how you might feel about the front office or the ownership and their decisions or the way that they're handling things, go watch this team. Go be in the stands. Go have fun. Go make memories with your family and your friends, and go be present there, because if you have a bad taste in your mouth from the last 2 seasons in the off season, I get it. I totally understand. But this is different. They are showing that they are the real deal. Everything that, us nerds look at under the hood suggests that it is real and it is worth believing in. Go watch this team. Go pay $5-10 or what they're having the $5 Friday night games, hot dog, beer, cheap tickets. Go watch, go sit in the stands, go cheer this team on. These guys have earned that opportunity, at least, to have fans in the stands cheering for them. So please go and do that.
I'm doing my part.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're
games now again.
The rest of us, will be in attendance at various points upcoming. So, do your part. Go make it. If you live, out of the viewing area, make a trip up. They're playing well and they're worth going and watching. So just give them the opportunity to earn you back. And I think they've done so far. And so, be there in the stadium, cheer them on, show them that what their hard-earned work has resulted in us coming back to support them. So that's kind of my soapbox. My name is Jake Wood. I am your host. For writers Gabe Simons and Adam Akbani, once again, I am Jake Wood. Have a great week, and we will talk to you again next week. We will have play-by-play announcer for the Memphis Redbirds, Alex Coyle, on next week. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Viva Albertos podcast. Please leave a rate and review on your favorite platform and turn on those bell notifications so you can be notified the moment our newest episode is released. As always, make sure to give us a follow on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook. Just type in Viva Albertos on any platform to find us. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.